Wade Graham is out for a month after failing to get his high tackle charge on Davey Miley. Downgraded at the Judiciary last night. The Sharks veteran was disappointed with the result, saying the decision sets a precedent for how reckless tackles will be judged for the rest of the season.
You know, we thought we had a good argument to move it across from being reckless to careless, but you know, the panel's found otherwise, and it's disappointing at the start of the season. Now they're going to be missing a month of footy, so unfortunately the result didn't go our way, but just got to get on with things now. They've set a bar now for a reckless tackle, which is going to play out for the rest of the year, so we're just going to have to wait and see how that plays out. So there's a risk low now, and there's obviously a high risk high now too. So you know, I'll have to work on a few things during training for sure. It was really a test case, the test between reckless and careless, and we thought we had a good argument to try and challenge the grading of it. We thought we made good submissions, but unfortunately, not to be.
Yes, Cronulla Sharks, Wade Graham, 4-week ban. He says that this has now set the bar. It was a test case. He's disappointed, obviously, with the result. He cops the 4 weeks. What was our thoughts on this one? Did he deserve to cop the 4 weeks? Did they get it right?
Oh, look, it was a spectacular shot, Braith. Like 20 years ago, it's on highlight reels every day of the week. There were some similarities with the Sonny Bill Williams shot on Joel Clinton back in 2004, Simon Dwyer on Jared Waerea-Hargraves in 2010. But the reality is he left the ground, he got his timing wrong. I don't think they had any alternative, Kenty.
Oops, he hit him in the head.
Correct, so he had to get 4 weeks.
Hit him in the head, and that's where I don't believe there was a similarity with Sonny Bill. Sonny Bill was straight on the ball. Look, he left the ground. The minute you leave the ground, you put yourself straight in the bracket for a reckless high tackle. And the fact he hit him high, just no argument. And I am stunned at the legal advice that they got, that they thought that they could get him off that or get him reduced to a careless tackle. I thought it was a reckless the whole way, and I actually applaud the NRL for starting to get tough with these tackles. There's this real redneck element out there that sits there and looks at the game and says, oh, mate, back in our day, we used to get away with that, and the game's getting soft, and it'll be Oz tag soon, and soon they'll be playing touch. Head-eye tackles have never been allowed in the game since 1908. And in fact, for many, many years, they were an immediate send-off. Immediate send-off. And if Miley had laid down there the other night, he would have been sent off and probably should have been sent off. So as far as if there's a new line in the sand, it's because the rules are finally being enforced, as they should be.
I think the line in the sand going forward is what you mentioned, Kent, is the fact that a reckless tackle now as soon as you leave the ground. So Wade was talking about, you know, the parameters now of a difference between careless and reckless. Well, as soon as you leave your feet and get in airborne, that's straight away a reckless charge, and I've got no issue with that as well. But it's going to cost Wade because he's on 278 first-grade games. And this is probably his last year. So there's a good chance that he doesn't play his 300th game now.
Could cost him his
Well, he's got to play every game, and they've got to get to round the third week of the finals to hit 300. So basically, game short of the grand final has to play every game from here on.
Now, Wade has had trouble with concussions and his tackling technique, and he used that in his defence last night to say that he has changed his tackling technique. He now tackles higher because he's worried about his head position when he goes into his tackles because he's had trouble with that in the past. That didn't work in his favour, though.
It's not a reasonable excuse.
It's not reasonable enough.
Well, irrespective, it can't be an argument when you end up nearly decapitating Davey Miley the way that he did. It's fair game that given the amount of head knocks that he has had, he missed a long period of time in 2021 as a result of concussions, but the reality is he hit him in the head.
It's not a conceivable defence to say, so I can avoid a concussion, I'm going to heighten your risk of a concussion. That just does not work. I sympathise with Wade there because he has had numerous concussions and he had a season ended just a couple of years ago because of repeated concussions, and they're all brought about because he was tackling low and he was hitting stray elbows or stray hip bones, and they're undefeated against the skull, okay? So that, I totally sympathise with that. But he's just got to find another way to come up with an effective tackle, because you can't be smashing your shoulder into someone else's face, which for all those people who didn't see the tackle and haven't seen it slowed up, that's where the contact where his shoulder was in Mawali's face. It was not on the ball and go up or anything like that. It was straight in the face. So from that point of view, it can't be defended.
And we talk about the two, or one of the highlights of the weekend was Felice Kafusi and his defensive style. There's nothing wrong with that. And you look at the way Jake Trbojevic defended against Canterbury and has done so now for a number of years. We'll watch that Felice Kafusi. They'll be part of the highlights all year. And there was nothing wrong with that technique. So I found it interesting the way Wade said he had to change his technique, but it was a terrible defence.
I get he's trying to protect himself.
We get it too. And you can see, like, someone like Victor Radley, who plays with that upright sort of style as well, he's changed his technique the last couple of years, and I don't know if that's really helped him either going forward. So it is interesting the fact that a player's come out and said, well, I've had to change my technique for concussion.
I think it's harder than what it seems to change the techniques. Obviously, these guys have played their whole lives defending a certain way, with it from nappy grade up until first grade, and they're still coming up with these high shots. Your column, Kenty, the game needs to take back control of tackling styles. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying, Braith, okay, we had last weekend 19 HIAs, 8 of which never made it back onto the field. So there's 8 people concussed last week, not allowed back on the field because they showed signs of concussion. For whatever reason, the way we are now tackling with this more upright style rather than the old-fashioned way that used to happen where you would hit with the shoulder and roll back and all the rest of it. Now, I get that's not effective in the game anymore. I know you've got to stop the offload, but now they're taught to hit above the ball rather than below the ball as you used to be tackled. So the tackling has become more dangerous. There's more head clashes. There's numerous incidents where the tackler himself is knocking himself out because of different things. Now, part of that is because of the speed they're coming into the tackle, and it minimises their time to be able to adjust as they get late footwork off the attacking player. But at some point, the game has to sit there and address this because while every other code around the world is also addressing the concussion issue, the fact is it's rampaging through our game. And it's because of the changes in tackling style, the greater impact. In the NFL, which is a power game as well, they still essentially tackle the same way. The only thing that they don't do that they used to do was spear with their helmet, which they used to be able to get away with. You're not allowed to do that now anymore. But essentially the tackling looks exactly the same. Our game has changed significantly.
So how do they take back control? How do they take back control?
Well, I think I actually don't know the answer. I think that at some point they're going to have to sit down with coaches. They're going to have to get coaches buy-in, which is going to be hard. I think the only way you get coaches buy-in is by things like last night where players are getting suspended for significant amounts of time, where the coaches go, you know what, it's just not worth it. But for the good of the game, and I don't know if the coaches have got it in them to do this, right, or the clubs have got it in them to do this. For the good of the game, we have to sit down and we have to, and it's not a 1 year turnaround, it's not a 6 weeks turnaround. It's going to take years to just slowly coach out all the bad habits that have come into the game.